Hey everyone. So when I was scrolling through my Facebook feed the other day, I come across this meme shared by the folks at Canadians for Liberty. Another Canadian page that seems mostly to be about espousing fundamental principles regarding personal accountability, responsibility, and individual liberty. But I've come to learn that actually they do seem to have a more conservative bent, right? So they don't necessarily seem to come across as pure libertarian or individualistic or independent of political parties. They do seem to be, I guess, kind to present as being all about individual liberty or liberty itself, what that represents, what that entails. But if you pay attention to their posts, it definitely does have a conservative bent, right? So if you're a genuine libertarian, someone that doesn't yield or obey any particular political ideology, whether it's from the left or the right, if you're a critical thinker, you may find yourself in a position such as I am, where you might have to disagree at times with those who propagate and put forth the presentations and posts on this page as the dominant narrative that they want to espouse. And this is in regards to when I seen it on my news feed, I just couldn't help. Normally, a lot of times I scroll through stuff and I just let it pass by. It's like, okay, I disagree, but hey, whatever. But when I seen this particular post, I couldn't help but delve into it because I remembered back, what was it, probably 9 years ago, I was on the other side of this argument and putting forth this same kind of narrative. Now I will show a picture of the meme and I'll just read what it says in the meme as we go along. Did you vote in the 2015 federal election? And then it shows a picture of the Canadian flag. And underneath it says, if you answered no, you're a part of the problem. And like I say, it took me back to like 9 years ago, almost 10 years ago, when I would have said basically the same thing. I was one of those people that early on in my early days of ignorant bliss, I said the same kind of things. Like, oh, well, if you don't vote, well, you're part of the fucking problem. Because here we are trying to change things. But in reality, what it really came down to, and once I had someone point it out to me in a much more clear and concise manner, I had to yield. I didn't do it immediately because that cognitive dissonance thing, that happened in my head just as it happens in a lot of the people that frequent this site, this Canadians for Liberty. And I see the comments subsequent to my own comments. Yeah, I get it. We all fall for that bullshit dominant narrative. It's like, well, if you aren't actively involved in the political process and choosing your leader, well, you're part of the fucking problem. But all it takes is someone, and unfortunately I had someone that commented on my article or my meme or whatever I presented back in the day that said, hey, listen, let me tell you something. You're not at fault, actually. If you're not part of the political process, you're actually an innocent victim of it all. You're not the person that's trying to put forth or present your dominant narrative where you should be able to impose your wills, your edicts, your opinions, your preferences, or your economic priorities onto other human beings. It's the non-voters that are actually the most peaceful, independent, clear-thinking people among us, because they obviously are not seeking to impose their will on others, which makes them actually way more libertarian than anyone that would try to put forth and present this dialogue or this narrative where they should have the capacity to impose their will, their preference, or their opinions on others. And, it was a little bit more than how I'm presenting it. Now I'm just paraphrasing it and just cutting it down into a short soundbite. But they put forth, like I said, an argument that I couldn't fight against it. They were saying 2 + 2 is 4, and because of my ignorance to a lot of things in the past, I was trying to say, no, 2 + 2 is 4.5. They were saying 2 + 2 is 4. I was saying, no, it's 4.5. But once I had the time to think about it critically and gave myself that time, right, with no pressure from someone from this side of the political spectrum or the other, and I just thought about it critically, it was like, no, this person's fucking right. And you know what? I'm very grateful for the fact that I allow so many varying opinions and influences in my life that it gives me the ability to be able to learn things that if I tried to function in an echo chamber, I would have never learned. If I just reinforced or solidified my ideological preference by having nothing but people around me that agreed with me fundamentally and ideologically, well, I would have never learned to have the proper counter argument that I possess today. And what I do now is once I've learned how to do something, what I try to do is I try to help other people by telling them, look, I've learned these things and I'm going to try to help you learn these things. So I did this. And so get back up here. So it's a meme with, did you vote in the 2015 federal election? Picture of the Canadian flag, and underneath, if you answered no, you're part of the problem. So my original comment that I shared on this page, and I only do this in the hopes of helping to educate and inform people properly and give them more of an objective sense of what it means to fight back or go against the dominant narrative that you hear from the political propagandists or the opinion makers in the established media. That's all I was trying to do, is do that pushback that someone did for me, that helped educate and inform me properly and helped me to break out of my indoctrinated slumber that used to be instilled in me much earlier on. So I'm going to read my comment on here and let you discern for yourself what you think about what I had to say. This is one of the oldest and provably incorrect assertions ever made by those who promote the state. I actually made the same argument many years ago myself. That was until someone actually pointed out the very real fact that those who don't vote are the only ones who don't have any fault or play any part in imposing their edicts or political gangs onto everyone else. And their participation would only serve to increase the legitimacy of these violent, corrupt, central planning sociopaths anyway. It is the voters who seek to impose their political will onto others, which makes them culpable in whatever economic or social pain inflicted on those who are minding their own business. What this phrase really suggests is that in other words, whoever presents it, political party of choice lost the election because not enough Canadians chose to vote for that party. Obviously, the person posing this had a particular party in mind when presenting it. What this fails to take into account is the preferred choice of the non-voters. Even if every single Canadian chose to show up and vote, there would still be a result giving one party the right to rule over the population for a number of years. And if the winning party is one they oppose, they will suggest it was the fault of low voter turnout rates. However, if their party of choice wins, they would not suggest more Canadians should have shown up to vote for their political opponents. In a democracy, majority rules. And whether you have 100 people voting or 1 million people voting, percentages are measured in the same way. So in Canada, where there are 3 main parties, all one party needs to do is to garner at least 40% of the vote to win. In other words, whether it is 40 out of 100 or 400,000 out of 1 million, the results end up being the same. I hope I helped clarify the incorrect assertion put forth by this expression that I once fell for as well. It sounds good as a quick soundbite or meme, but once anyone actually stops to think about it or have it properly explained by someone else, it falls apart under scrutiny. And then, of course, subsequently, I had a whole lot of people chiming in and offering their own opinions. And I'll post a link to my original comment and the subsequent discussion and comments that came thereafter that were either countering or agreeing with what I had to say. But you'll see that we're in a pretty precarious situation in Canada in the fact that people still are very much ideologically and cult-like in their conceptual beliefs regarding governance. They still believe that there are some people that get to escape universally consistent principles and morals and have this weird capacity to dictate, control, and plunder the masses just because they go into particular positions of so-called authority. What I constantly try to tell people all the time is, I was ignorant to this stuff in the past and you're ignorant to it now. And because I've been doing this stuff a lot longer than these people, that's another thing. All these people that I see commenting, these are noobs. Even this page, Canadian for Liberty, you're a bunch of noobs. I was doing this shit when you fuckers didn't even know what politics was all about, probably. But yet there's all these noobs that want to come in now and try to overwhelm or put forth old dinosaur type rhetoric where it's like, well, we're way past that. I'm trying to help educate and inform you people properly and bring you up to speed, But they want to keep dragging me back to that shit. Well, I won't go back there. I won't fucking go back to being an idiot arguing over stuff that I've done a decade ago, right? I'm way beyond that. I'm past that. But yet they try to put forth and present, like I say, you read some of these comments, they act as if I'm what? It's the opposite. I'm the noob. I'm the one that just doesn't know what I'm talking about. Oh no, politics is the way to change things going forward. Okay, well, like I said, show me where society has ever shown where politics and the religion, the dogma of statism has ever benefited people. No, it benefits small, very corrupt and vile segments of society, but for the general masses, it's always an imposition of shrinking and reducing our individual rights and freedoms and autonomy. Government always seeks to impose the will of the majority on the minority. That is what a democracy is. I mean, fuck, anyone that would just take 3 seconds to Google what democracy means would come to understand that it's mob or majority rule. Now, some governments try to put forth and present some kind of semblance of legitimacy by giving actual rights. So yeah, it's mob or majority rule, but we'll give rights to minorities because they're entrenched in our Constitution or our Bill of Rights. But like I say, it's all subjective. It's all open to interpretation by the central planning, the ruling class. So they can tell you that, no, these words don't mean what they really mean if they want to impose their will or their edicts or the mandates on you. So it's always just about rule by decree. Rule by, like the king. My opinion is now law. That's how we function today. That's how the world functions under democratic states today. It's just rule by central planning edicts. By preferences, by opinions, by ideology. There's nothing objective involved in how the process plays out. If it did, well, you'd hear people like me. My voice would be out there, but you won't hear a voice like mine out there on the established media or in the political or pundit class. And why? Because I'm not part of that group. I'm not part of the central planning elite. And if you're not part of the central planning elite or willing to yield or obey by their edicts, well, your voice is left out there. Just with so many times in the past. It's all just a bunch of propagandist bullshit that is meant to align with the dominant narrative of the central planning elite who want to dictate, control, and plunder your lives, but think that they're doing it in some form of benevolence or with some actual genuine pretense of authority. When in reality, it only takes a few seconds or a few minutes. I won't say a few seconds, actually. It takes a few minutes, but only a few minutes if you have a decent brain on your head, for me to point out that government is completely illegitimate and a wholly top-down authoritarian approach in how to dictate and micromanage the lives of millions of people. I don't know why the folks at Canadians for Liberty would want to align with people that think this way. I think it's a massive detriment. If you keep people continually ignorant or ideologically driven, well, don't expect things to ever get better. You might think that, if there was more voter turnout, our political party would be in power and then we could impose our will on others and then everything would be great. But what you leave out in that equation every single time is that people that oppose your particular ideology or your edicts are always going to be seen as the oppressed. So politics, governance is always about imposing the will of a majority on a minority. And it really comes down to just who gets to impose their will on each other. There's nothing logically or philosophically or morally consistent about that. Like I say, it's just, we might as well just go back to the old days of, only the strong survive and only the most powerful rule. Well, if you want to play that game, well, then all rules and all bets are off. Let's go about it. Because, matter of fact, if we actually want to go into that, well, hey, if you want to go that way, people like me will win regardless. So it's really incumbent on those of you to do what people like myself suggest and stop trying to impose your will or preferences or opinions on others and just accept the fact that we have to live in a more libertarian society going forward. We have to have that live, let live mentality. We got to stop seeking to impose our wills on others through the platform, through the measure that we call the political process. It's only a continuation to that race to the bottom. And, I think we're pretty much there at this point, right? Why do you want to continue any further? What, do you want to dig into the subterranean parts now? Because it's not going to benefit anyone for us all to be stuck in this kind of fucking darkness. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.